Hello everyone, it's me, your favorite chess coach, Diego Villanueva. And in today's video, I want to analyze a game with you from Alireza Firuza, and Ian Nepiamanchti with the black pieces. Firuza had the white pieces in this game. I picked this game because it's pretty instructive, and yeah, let's see. So my question is, in this position, it's important to understand how to play the middle games, right? Most people think like they need to like study and spend their time doing tactics and openings and all that stuff. But it's important to have a solid understanding of the positional play and how to apply the fundamentals correctly. So it's why to move. Ian Nepiamanchti just played bishop f6, and now Firuza have this position. Well, here you need to finish your development, right? Whenever you don't know what to do, take a look at your pieces and think how you can keep activating your pieces, right? Like almost all your pieces are developed, you have to develop your knight, for example, here. Like a mistake that I always see in positions like this is like, okay, I can play, for example, queen b3, and that's a check. And just because I'm giving a check, that should be a good idea. But before you make a check, you want to see what you're gonna do later. I mean, what are you gonna do after? And if you are not getting anything from just like making that check, then avoid it, okay? Because that's a resource, that's a powerful resource that you can use later. All right, queen b3, for example, is an option, but just because it's an option, it doesn't mean that you have to execute that option. I would say that here, what you have to do is to finish the development of your minor pieces. I mean, the knight. And you have two ways, right? Knight c3 and knight d2. What's better? Which one is better? If you play knight c3, I mean, you're developing the knight, but then what? Where are you gonna put the knight? The knight cannot go to d5, right? In this case, Firuza preferred to put the knight on d2. Because if you put the knight on d2, you maintain this bishop very active, adding pressure on e5. Not only that, but the knight can go to b3, c5, or can go to c4, right? At this level, higher rated players, when they want to develop a piece, they are not looking for the immediate option. They will try to look for the future of that piece, right? And at least try to project your pieces in a spare of time of 2 moves ahead. Like, okay, I'm developing the piece here, and then what? What I'm gonna do with this piece? And just by reflecting on this will give you more choices, more options, and you will start to consider new stuff, new things, okay? For that reason, that's pretty important. So, after 92, Ian Nepiamanchti played g5. So, I am very interested in checking this position because most people feel afraid when they see like all these pawns are coming to the king, right? So, if this happens to you, if you don't like getting this type of attacks, the first thing you have to know is like stay calm, right? Here Firuza played this position pretty accurately. He played h3, okay, to avoid g4. I mean, if black wants, he can play g4, but the problem is like if g4, pawn takes, bishop takes, and the position is okay for white. But what's the importance of playing h3? The importance of playing h3 is you don't want him to play g4, because if this happens, then the knight won't have a good square, okay? So he wants to prevent this. Now, it's important to address the intentions of your opponent, but not because your opponent has an interesting idea, it means it's correct. And I want you to remember one important principle in chess. Every time you want to make a pawn move, you want to feel and you want to think about the consequences of making that pawn move, right? What's the consequence of this pawn move? Well, you're opening the structure around your king, okay? And that can create some issues in the future. And you will see how in the future, in the next 10 moves, this is going to be a current problem for black. And Firuza exploited this pretty well. So, you know that here, for example, one of the reasons why white is going to be better is the weakness around the king. Okay, the king is not very safe. And Firuza is going to show us how to exploit this. So here, for example, Ian finished his development with bishop e6. Black's position looks good, and Now we have to finish our development. Since your minor pieces are in a good position, it's time for the major pieces to, play. Most people say that middle games are very complex, are like very, very hard. And yes, I would say that middle games are the most difficult part of the chess theory, right? Because you have a lot of pieces. But it's easier if you understand the fundamentals, right? And the most important fundamental in chess is activity. So you want to active all your pieces. For example, the rook on a1 is not doing anything, so Firuza play rook c1, activating the rook. So what's the idea behind this rook move? For example, in many situations, what you can do with the rook is to sacrifice your rook, and if pawn takes, then you can take on e5. And this is going to be very good for white. Why? Because you will get all the center, you will destroy black's structure, pawn structure, and not only that, if your opponent takes a knight, you can take with the bishop, and this bishop is going to dominate all the dark squares. And I told you before, the king is going to be pretty exposed. And I would say that if white can sacrifice a rook on c6 at some point, maybe not now, but at some point, the position is going to be very hard for black. Okay, this is called the exchange sacrifice. Now, Ian Nepo knows this stuff, so he plays queen d6 for two reasons. He wants to defend e5, and he also wants to hold on c6. Now, it's important to study games from strong players, because you can see that how they pay attention to their opponent's ideas all the time. One of the reasons why you're blundering, one of the reasons why you cannot reach the next level is because you're struggling to understand the ideas of your opponent. Okay, in this case, he knows that Firuza might play rook c6, so he stops this, okay, and he won't allow him to execute this idea, right? It's important to do this stuff. So now, if you want to sacrifice, I just can take this, and yes, you're destroying my structure, but the problem is like the queen is holding this position pretty well, and I can reinforce this by making 97 later, in case that, I don't know, you play queen e1 to keep adding pressure on e5. So there's a huge compensation for that sacrifice. All right, so Firuza just played here knight b3, which is an amazing move. The idea is to keep improving his position. Again, middle games are not that hard. If you don't know what to do, keep improving your position. The knight on d2, okay, is developed. Can you optimize the knight? Of course you can. And from b3, the knight can do two things. First, the knight can go to c5, attacking b7 and attacking the bishop, or the knight can attack d4, so you can play d4 later. And if you can, release the center, this is going to be pretty good for you, because if you open the center, at the end of the day, the problem is going to be that the king is going to be exposed. All right. Now, there is a very important, this is a critical moment, because here Firuza had a stronger move, which is d4 directly. All right. And the threat is very clear. He wants to play d5, or he wants to open the center. Now, why this move works? Because if black takes on d4, for example, with a knight, you can take with a bishop, and after pawn takes, e5, and white is winning with a fork. But why? Bishop takes, and it looks like everything's fine. But white has a very, very good move, which is knight e4, attacking the queen. Not only that, but the knight is attacking e5. And if black prefers to play, if black plays d5 to defend the bishop, then rook c5, queen takes, rook e5, and with this fork, black's position is going to collapse pretty soon. I know that black can play queen g6, but still, this position sucks for black. You're opening everything. You're losing your dark square bishop, who was a defender of the king, and d4 is going to fall. Black's position is pretty bad. Now, what if blacks play a move like here after d4 if he takes with the pawn? This is not better. Actually, you can play e5 directly, and after this, and this, and you're a forking, so let's say he takes and takes. Again, it's important to remove this bishop, who is the guardian of the black squares. White is winning. Again, the material is equal, but come on, the king is pretty exposed, right? If you blow up the center, now you can see how the bishops can play in the diagonals, and this is going to be very good for white. The rook is targeting c7, the bishop is targeting b7. this bishop is a monster on this diagonal, and I was checking this position is like pretty good for black. For example, let's say black plays queen f7, now queen e2. The idea is to play queen e5, and white is winning. If he plays, for example, bishop c4, this idea doesn't work. You can play queen e5. If you want to trade, remember this. If you're attacking the king, don't trade pieces unless you have a good reason to do so. You have to calculate, and if you are calculating and you'll see that after trading queens you're gonna win, then do it. But if that's not the case, avoid the trade. So here you can play queen c5, attacking the queen, and you can take the material, right? And knight takes, queen takes, and white is much, much, much better. Actually, you're winning, right? Bim, pam, boom. And if queen here, for example, bishop d5, and yeah, white is winning. Again, right, the pair of bishops in this open position with a king that exposed, that's why d4 works. So I'm not here to criticize, oh, come on, Firuza, why you didn't play d4? It's so obvious. First of all, it's not that obvious. I mean, if he would have more time on the clock, I'm sure that he will find a move like that. But this is a blitz game, all right? So here's another important lesson. During your game, you will have many chances to make moves like this, all right? To sacrifice a pawn and to get advantage. Now, what's the problem? The problem is like everything depends on context, okay? If you're playing a tournament of 1 hour, then you want to invest your time to play this accordingly and to calculate all this stuff. But if you're playing a blitz game, you won't have enough time to make d4. Now, you can take the risk of doing that without calculating the move correctly, but a more like, you know, a wiser approach would be like just stay practical and keep improving your position. Again, if you're playing a blitz game, that's correct. But if you're playing a 1 hour game, you should take your time and at least consider d4, right? And you're not wasting your time if you consider that move, because just because it doesn't work in the moment, it doesn't mean like it's not gonna work later. So here, knight b3, Ian playing rook d8, and now knight c5, and the knight is very, very good on c5, right? Attacking b7. Out of nowhere, like the knight was on b1, then d2, b3, c5, and now white is adding a lot of pressure on black's position. And after this, now the bishop is forced to retreat to c8, rook e1, improving the position a little bit. It doesn't like, it looks like it's passive, but it's not. You will see the intention of this pawn move, this rook move. h6, Ian wants to consolidate his position, and now queen c2, you know, improving his position a little bit. a5, and now Firuza took, knight took, and since the knight is not defending d4 anymore, it's the time to play d4, and now everything is going to get open. And the interesting thing is like black cannot take, because if you take pawn e5, and now the e5 is going to get open. So if bishop takes, knight takes, and now you will see the idea of having the rook here, which is bishop c4. Check. Right? And that's the idea of Firuza here. Another good move, apart from this, is bishop d4. Actually, you win the game faster if you do this. Because you're attacking the queen. The queen goes, for example, to f6, bishop takes, and now you have the incredible move, bishop d4, sacrificing the bishop. But the idea is to put your opponent in a very huge trouble, because after this, you can play rook e7, and then the queen is going to g6. If he wants to defend, rook takes, king takes, rook e1, and the queen is coming to h7, and if black goes queen g7, rook e6, queen e5, and this is too much. And just by applying this theory of ratio of attackers versus defenders, white is winning this game. It's not that simple, but for example, let's say he makes king g8, you have rook g6. That's the idea, right? Playing queen f5 followed by rook g6, and then you're winning the game because it's you're pinning the queen. I know this stuff is like you have to calculate a lot to see through this. I'm not saying that it's easy, but that's the idea, right? If you take e5 is coming and everything is getting open. So knight c6 he played, and now knight d5, and after this position, black's position is going to collapse. But because after this, take a look at his pieces, right? Everything is closed. The bishop on f6 is closed, trapped. The rook is not in an open file. What's the main reason why it is better? Not only because his pieces are playing together, but you have an important space advantage with d5 and e4. And this setup is blocking all your pieces, all right? So here, Firuza playing knight d3, and now e5 is under attack, c7 is under attack, and after this, Firuza just took the material. c6, pawn takes, and eventually, Firuza, a couple of moves later, he won the game. And a couple of moves later, Ian resigned. It was a great demonstration of how to play actively, how to create threats. Also, props to Ian Nepo, who saw through the intentions of Firuza. But at the end of the day, Firuza won the game, and it's like very, very instructive. All right, this is it for today. If you like these explanations, this analysis, let me know in the comments, and see you very, very soon.